the next song on the album, which is The Strange Blessing of Bearing.
Okay.
Now, I have to admit, of all the songs on this album, a confession, this was the song that was most mystifying to me. And perhaps it's because I have not had children. I have not bore a child.
Right.
So some of the imagery was a little bit like I was trying to get there. I had to sort of strive to get there. It was a bit of a mystery. But after reading what you wrote in the book and knowing the context of the song, then it just shook me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I think this is probably my favorite song of the album, and it might be my favorite Steve Bell song.
Wow.
It was a gift song. It came to me. I wasn't looking for it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I was thinking about this. And I was at I was taking a course. I was helping lead a course at Regent College a couple summers ago. And while I was there, I did this with Bruce Hindmarsh on prayer. Mm-hmm. But while I was there, I was reading a book of sermons by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And in that book, now this is the guy that sort of gave his life in Nazi Germany. He's the guy that encouraged the church not to be co-opted by the state. And there was a real split in the church. We just see this in America too. Mm-hmm. You know, like does the church support the state, or is the state the problem? Mm-hmm. All that kind of stuff. And so he really encouraged the church to not support state agenda, to not support nationalism. And that the gospel actually takes us away from that, not the other way around. And he died for it. Mm. And he bore that. But he wrote about this strange blessing of bearing that gifts come from. And so I'm reading this and it struck me. I kind of got it. We've had children. I've watched my wife bear children, mm-hmm. and the gift that is, and the cost to her, mm-hmm. so that we could have this joy, not only of our own children, but the cost to her that we can have grandchildren now, mm-hmm. that she paid for that.
Yeah.
You know, she paid for that. And then you look at the whole narrative of Jesus. And in our day and age, we're uncomfortable with this kind of language. The ancients weren't. Mm-hmm. That, you know, there's an image of some images of Jesus on the cross, and there's a distended belly. And you see this in some of the more ancient imagery of, mm-hmm. of Jesus. That's a baby bump. Mm. That Jesus is bearing new life.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at it as being, okay, he's emaciated. Maybe, you know, has to do with, you know, the physicality of hanging mm-hmm. on a cross. No, it's a baby bump.
Wow.
And that there's a maternal sort of nature of God. Well, obviously.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But there's that God not only bears us, but it costs God to bear us. Mm-hmm. Right. And we've been made in the image of God. And so not only in how in God's bearing, this blessing comes, but then we're called, in a sense, to take up the same thing mm-hmm. for the sake of the world.
And it's not pretty, and it's messy, and it's painful.
Yep.
And you talked about this song sort of ambushing you,
yep.
And sort of demanding to be written.
Yep.
And it's interesting because you said the other song that did that happened that way was This Is Love.
Yes.
Now, if
from an old album.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if the blessing of bearing was a mystery to me, This Is Love is one that just hit me instantly, and every time I hear it, I'm back in Israel when I got to go there and finally made the connection of the actual sacrifice that Jesus made.
Right.
When I finally got that, I was on the ground.
Right.
And I couldn't get up.
Right.
And every time I hear that song, that's where it takes me. So it's interesting that both of those songs ambushed you the same way.
Yeah. The thing about This Is Love is it's using familiar metaphor to you. So mm-hmm. you could probably access it quicker.
Yes.
Right? Where Strange Blessing is really asking you to think of God as maternal.
Yes.
And so therefore it's harder to and the suffering of Christ or God is maternal suffering. Mm-hmm. And then the calling is for us to participate in that. I'm not called, boy, this is a longer conversation that we're not going to get into. We, in a paternalistic society, we think of the Christian hero as Braveheart. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. The Christian hero is not Braveheart. The Christian hero is Mary.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. The proper heroism of Christianity is the one that suffers so that others might live, mm-hmm. that gives their life so that others might live, doesn't take a life so that others might live. It's not the violence of Braveheart. It's the gift of Mary, of maternity. I'm not called to be a strong warrior. I'm called to be a suffering mother. And boy, you start to let that imagery work on you. That'll mess you up for a while, especially if you're a guy.
Yeah.
Remember, these are metaphors.
Right.
So take a pill. It's
yeah,
fine.
it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah. But really important metaphors. And for a society that's really elevated the sort of the male narrative, we really lose, I think, some of the deepest qualities of the revelation of who God is.
What a journey one song can take you on. Let's listen to The Strange Blessing of Bearing.
Peace of God is with the patient ones, bearing up under affliction. For the joy that love has promised us, the waves of agony wash over us. May we know what mothers know, the strange blessing of bearing. Becomes a lover, oriented towards the other, sufferings gladly enduring, for the sake of another's flourishing. May we know what martyrs know, the beautiful blessing of bearing. We pray that in the days to come, ever keep before our longing the mystery of your bleeding Son, through the night into the dawning, into the dawning, into the dawning. Love and wound in God's creation fortifies the soul's elation. Hearts on fire to love attending, tribulations notwithstanding. May we know what Jesus knows, the glorious blessing of bearing.
That was The Strange Blessing of Bearing off of Steve Bell's brand new album. I guess it's not brand new, but it's still new to us. Wouldn't you love to know? And we're in conversation with Steve Bell. And Steve, if that particular song isn't another example of the gift of music, I don't know what is. I mean, to be able to sing about and communicate a message like that through music. I don't know how else you would actually be effectively able to communicate that.
No, you can't. And I mean, there's different kinds of language for different purposes. And we have become people that want to master our universe. And so we're highly versed in technical language. Because with technical language, you can be precise and you can control outcomes and all that kind of stuff. But with these deeper truths, you can't. They're more woomy.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? They're mysterious and they're dark, and it's a little frightening to go there. And so you need the melody or the language of melody and poetry. That stuff that's ambiguous a little bit, that doesn't nail everything down. That's open to revelation. That's open to apocalypse. So that something new can happen. And so I think the best songs have that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Whether mine or I think my better songs have that element to it.
Yeah.